Falken's long-awaited mud terrain tire is on the way. While Falken MT tire has been around for a couple of years for testing and rock crawling competition, the production version will go on sale to the public sometime around April 2016. While the newest version looks much like the prototype, the tread blocks have been rearranged and the tread compound is a little harder for improved wear for the consumer market. So the big question everyone is asking, is it worth the wait? Well, our answer is an unqualified yes. Falken spent a full year extra developing the tread design and changes to the compound for the production WildPeak MT. The time and effort paid off. The new Falken WildPeak MT is a great tire in a marketplace of some really good mud terrain tires. In the 4 months we have spent with this tire, we have encountered many conditions. On the highway we have tested in dry, wet, snow, and ice on city streets and mountain roads, as well as rain. We have tested on large rocks and boulders, steep climbs and descents, up and down steep ledges, side slopes, over sharp rocks, and all sorts of road and weather conditions. Overall, Falken has created a tire with some great compromises, but outstanding off-road performance in the areas I consider to be the highest priorities. When it comes to design compromises, all mud terrain tires are biased toward off-road performance. Considering that even the most die-hard off-roader, if their 4x4 is also a daily driver, spends only about 10% of their miles off-road, then on-road performance must be one of the main compromises considered when designing a new tire. The Falken WildPeak MT seems slightly biased for off-road performance, especially for ascending and descending hills of all types and for rock crawling. Having said that, the void ratio, the comparison of tread block area versus the area between the tread blocks, is on the low side. This has two, at least, advantages. First, traction is better on any hard surface since more rubber meets the ground. This includes asphalt, rocks, hard dirt, and even ice. Larger void ratios improve performance when the tire digs into the surface, like in mud, sand, snow, and soft dirt. The second advantage is reduced highway noise. Though no mud terrain tire is really quiet, the Falken WildPeak MT is on the quiet side of the MT noise range. Off-road traction in all conditions is affected by tread design. The unique design of the Falken WildPeak MT seems to allow edges of the tread block to be in continuous contact with the surface. The siping in the tread blocks allows flex in the blocks and adds additional edges for improved grip. This tread block pattern has an additional advantage on the asphalt at very low speeds. On many MT tires, you can feel the transition between the blocks as the vehicle rolls forward. Not so with the Falken WildPeak MT tires. The transition is very smooth for a mud terrain tire. Of no benefit on the highway, but of great importance on the rocks, the sidewall design plays a crucial role. Here's what Falken has to say about the design. The MT features Falken's proprietary 3-ply Duraspec sidewall technology developed to sustain the most punishing off-road conditions. Duraspec also features 2 high-ply turn-ups that provide an additional layer of protection and durability. An aggressive upper sidewall provides additional traction at low air pressures on rugged terrain. The WildPeak MT also features exceptional road manners thanks to the optimized variable 3-pitch tread pattern and precision manufacturing technology. Heat diffuser technology in the lower sidewall dissipates heat and protects the internal tire components. Keeping this critical area of the tire cool ensures vehicle stability even when towing or carrying heavy loads. Duraspec 3-ply sidewall is a Falken proprietary technology developed to endure the most punishing off-road conditions. Duraspec also features 2 high-ply turn-ups that provide an additional layer of protection. Rugged and rigid tread blocks feature step-down supports on the center blocks to provide tread pattern rigidity in the contact patch, enhancing stability and handling while preventing stones from becoming trapped in the grooves. Aggressive upper sidewall along with offset shoulder blocks protect the tire from sharp rocks and provide additional off-road traction at low tire pressures or an off-camber situation. Mud and rock defense features shed mud from the tread grooves to prevent loss of traction, ensuring maximum grip while preventing rocks from puncturing the base of the tread. Optimized tread pattern with 3 variable pitches positions the tread blocks to provide an exceptionally quiet ride. Our on-road tests were conducted in dry, wet, snow, and ice on city streets, mountain roads, highways, and interstates. While mud terrain tires are not noted for great handling on asphalt roads, the Falken WildPeak MTs are really good on mountain roads in all weather conditions, although nothing is good on ice. On highways and interstates, like most MT tires, the driver is a little more involved in steering. These tires have surprisingly good grip in the snow, especially when the snow is fresh and hard-packed. There are no quiet mud terrain tires, but some are far noisier than others. Some MT tires are so loud that neighbors know when you're in the neighborhood because you can be heard a block or 2 away. Some are only a little louder than an all-terrain tire. The Falken WildPeak MT falls on the quiet side of the spectrum, not the quietest we have tested, but by far not the loudest. Falken engineers worked hard to find a tread block pattern and void ratio that is not too noisy, but still offers excellent performance. Most vehicle manufacturers suggest high tire pressures in an effort to improve fuel economy mileage numbers. This tends to accelerate tire wear in the center of the tread and increases ride harshness. Given the sad state of our roads and highways, this can make for less than a comfortable ride. Plus, running more in the center of the tire reduces braking and cornering traction. This is made more significant when the tire sidewall is on the stiff side. At the pressures we have found to work well, which is 29 psi for driving around town on our mountain roads, and for short runs on highways and interstates we run 33 psi. The ride quality is good. We have had more than one opportunity to test the Falken WildPeak MTs in emergency stopping situations on both local roads in and around Big Bear and in traffic on interstates. Since we didn't crash when it seemed inevitable, I would say that the tires are really good under braking and dry conditions. They also work effectively in snow and are pretty good on ice. Acceleration is good in ice and very good in snow. Dry acceleration is not an issue. Regardless of the trail conditions, wet, dry, snow, or ice, climbing hills puts a premium on traction. We have a wide variety of hill climbs for testing, including rutted, loose dirt, rocky ascents, and damp dirt, muddy dirt, and snow. On our 25 to 30 degree rutted loose dirt slope, the Falken WildPeak MTs climb easily in any conditions. On a very challenging 35 degree slope where turning is also involved, there were no issues, and without using lockers, we encountered slight wheel spin. Our most difficult test is about a 45 degree slope with ruts and loose dirt. This is very challenging, and not all vehicles and tire combinations can make the ascent. In dry conditions with lockers, the Falken WildPeak MTs motor up the slope with very little wheel spin. Add some dampness and the climb is still accomplished, but with more wheel spin. When it gets muddy or snow covered, the slope is impassable. In snow conditions, it becomes more difficult. We have found that with wet snow that is prone to packing in the voids in the tread, it becomes difficult even on slopes of 15 degrees. However, we also discovered that if we air down to 7 or 8 psi, remember we have beadlock wheels, the snow is ejected more easily from the tread voids, improving traction. This occurs because the tire can flex more, and that assists in ejecting the snow. In light powder, this seems to be less of an issue, and we have negotiated slopes of about 20 degrees using lockers front and rear with some wheel spin. Hill descents can be tricky with a lifted JK Unlimited. So much weight is already on the front tires that when you go down a 45 degree slope, little weight is left on the rear tires. If you lock up the rear tires and steer, you can get sideways, which is not good. We had no issues on slopes up to 35 degrees even when the ground was wet or covered with light snow. On a 45 degree slope we experienced very minor wheel lockup, but it was easily controlled and caused no problems. We have not attempted a slope of 45 degrees in wet or snowy conditions. I suspect that would be quite a challenge. Lateral grip is important for cornering, but even more important for sticking on side slopes. We have tested the Falken WildPeak MTs on dry slopes as steep as 35 degrees without lateral sliding. Many tires will not hold on a side slope of 35 degrees, and air down, the sidewall design helps on side slopes. While axle articulation is the most important factor when negotiating big ruts and bumps, tire traction still plays an important role. Here again, the Falken WildPeak MTs are awesome. And again, the aggressive sidewall design helps keep the rig positioned exactly where you place it with no slipping or slide. Definitely a confidence builder. While driving on snowy trails is always a challenge, we found the Falken WildPeak MTs to do a pretty good job. One of the things we learned about the Falkens, because they have a very stiff sidewall, it really helps to air down quite a bit. We have raceline beadlock wheels, so we can air down as low as 3 psi in these conditions, but anywhere around 7 or 8 psi is a big help. Higher pressures tend to allow the snow to build up more between the tread blocks. If you air down more, the flex of the sidewalls helps evacuate the snow from between the tread blocks for improved traction. For many of us, the essence of four-wheeling is rock crawling. If you have a Jeep Wrangler equipped with 37-inch tires, then rock crawling is a top priority. If it's dry, we run the Falken WildPeak MTs at 10 to 12 psi on the rocks. This is a compromise between ground clearance and traction. The tread block design and the siping on the Falken WildPeak MTs allows the tread to conform to the shape of the rocks. The tough and aggressive sidewall design provides exceptional grip when climbing on the sides of steep rocks, a nice touch that minimizes the chance of sliding sideways off a rock and smashing a rock slider or skid plate. With care, you can air down even more as long as you pay close attention to the underside and ground clearance. This pays big dividends when crawling on rocks that are deteriorated and have a sandy surface that easily shears away like those found on our nearby John Bull Trail. The lower pressures also help the sidewalls get more grip. The Falken WildPeak MTs provide great traction on the rocks in dry or damp conditions. Icy snow limits any tire in the rocks, and the Falken is no exception. But the Falken WildPeak MTs can negotiate rocks in surprisingly adverse conditions. Descending off rocks with a steep drop-off is challenging, but these tires with hard braking do a great job. Steep ledges put a premium on tire traction, and the Falken WildPeak MT tires work great in these conditions. Ascending ledges is pretty much like crawling up rocks. In dry conditions, we discovered that in most cases, lockers are not needed. The the ledges need to be really steep, or both front and rear tires are ascending at the same time before lockers come into play. If we encounter wet, snowy, and low traction situations, add to the challenge, and in some instances traction is inadequate for forward progress. We can, however, use lockers, and this helps greatly in ascending steep ledges in low traction situations. Overall, the Falken WildPeak tires do a great job ascending steep ledges. Arguably, dropping off ledges requires maximum traction. We have tested many tires on the ledges of Gold Mountain Jeep Trail and the steep rocks on the John Bull Trail near Big Bear Lake, California. With many tires, we experience wheel lockup sliding down a rock face or ledge. On the same rocks in the same conditions, the Falken WildPeak MTs hold with no sliding. And this degree of traction is reassuring. If you slide down a rock face too hard, the suspension compression can cause more weight transfer to the front tires. In extreme drop-offs, this can add to a bad situation and assist the rig in a rollover. Being able to hold traction and slowly roll down extreme rock faces reduces this risk and builds confidence. Of course, the driver has to play an active role here, as does a skilled spotter. But without great tire traction, the driver is at the mercy of gravity. The Falken WildPeak MTs have great traction for these circumstances. testing a new tire is great fun and very challenging. This is the first MT tire available from Falken, so one would approach testing with just a bit of skepticism. We had the advantage of spending several months driving and wheeling on the Falken prototype race compound mud terrains that showed superb performance in the King of the Hammers competition. The prototype was biased for off-road performance, and noise and wear were not issues at all. The consumer version we tested here is surprisingly similar to the prototype, with some changes to the tread block orientation and harder rubber compound. The softer rubber compound of the prototype probably increased grip, but without a back-to-back comparison, it is impossible to tell conclusively. It seems like the new version works just as well on hard surfaces, where the rubber compound really comes into play, but that is based on some experience and some conjecture. The bottom line is that Falken has hit a home run with its first consumer mud terrain tire. Great performance off-road, good characteristics on-road have made this a great choice for the rocks and all other off-road situations, especially if you drive your rig daily and to the trails.